Adventure Refram, joyful in Jamaica. A party of queens gathered within the remote confines of the hidden yet somewhat sought-after Jamaican gem that is Negril. I'm acutely aware that time continues to pass. However, I've enjoyed reflectively rambling about this experience since having safely returned home. Hope you enjoy the scroll down it. Day 1, Thursday, June 12th. The first grouped party of queens landed right on time and safely in Montego Bay. We proceeded through customs, duty-free alcohols were acquired, lady found a red stripe, and we all boarded transportation with our belongings in attendance. The castle wouldn't be ready for us for another few hours after our hour-and-a-half drive to the West End, but luckily, Lady had it all planned out. We'd be stopping to patronize the Shirella Inn for a bite and a bevy while waiting for the rest of the party to fly in. The ride didn't feel very long at all, shorter even than getting from dads to ladies on a holiday weekend. Along the way, I stared out the window in awe at all the sights of all the everythings, as fun facts from Lady's longtime driver friend were flung my way. He's a great storyteller, knows facts with numbers, fun callouts, and all of the like. He stopped at a roadside stand, procured cornbread pudding, then went back for sweet potato pudding. I'm likely butchering the actual names of the desserts, but I digress. I know I ate most of the cornbread variety, and since only I seem to like it, especially when combined with the paired glazed sauce, I ended up enjoying nearly all of it myself, as the party queens weren't much fond of it. I only had a bite of the sweet potato variety. It was sweet. That was the one they very much enjoyed. Murals, historic buildings, famous movie set locations, geographic landmarks, fun facts all about goats, and fancy signs were all made note of as we drove by, and I was happy to be experiencing inclusion. There was so much I didn't know. There's so much I still don't know, obviously, but simple basic things like driving correctly on the left, drivers positioned on the vehicle's right, the exchange rate of currency. I think I could do okay walking around for sure, but no thank you driving. He drove expertly. We arrived at Shirella just as the skies opened up and rained down upon us. Beachside during the rain break at Shirella Inn. We entered past the lobby, out and around the floral garden pool area, and into the covered bar and dining patio. Drinks and food were ordered and consumed. The afternoon group of queens trickled in safely from their flights and transport. Selfies were snapped, and shortly after, tabs were paid and we all loaded up, this time mixed in amongst each other, all having assumed all were accounted for prior to taking off to the castle. Shirella didn't feel too far from our destination, maybe 15 minutes or so, although time kind of stopped working normally, so easy chance it could have been longer. Entering the property by way of manual-operated security gate felt very well guarded. Yay for safety! We all fell out of the two vans. I think I helped get suitcases out and at least set them on the front steps for their taking up the small flight of steps and into the doorway. Most everyone had already set off with eager anticipation for exploration by the time I began taking in my first glimpse of our new temporary home for the next week. Thankfully enough, it was deemed and declared immediately beyond sufficient by Queen Lady herself. A banner was strung, and the birthday celebration was officially underway. Happy birthday, Queen Bee! It's not official if there's no sign. The castle grounds were stunning, a literal fortress built into the cliffside of the sea. I walked around admiring how glistening white all of the walls and floors were. I wondered how many coats of paint it had along it. It reminded me a bit of the psych hospital. Definitely not the scary ER part, though. But I'm rambling now, though, aren't I? Anyway, I helped get settled, and after the ladies had selected their rooms, I snuck off to mine and prepared to take a shower before dinner. I wasn't super hungry on account of both the excitement at being in Jamaica and from having finished all the cornbread pudding from the drive over, but alas, I ended up having to wait until after eating. But really, that might have been even better since it thoroughly improved the feeling of nice and comfy in my new dress. Pre-dinner ready for shower face and post-dinner freshly showered face. Sunset day 1. After lightly exploring the grounds a bit more, I wandered off to my room and enjoyed the night putzing around, dumping thoughts and enjoying the soundscape outside my window. Bittersweet that the night noises reminded me of Puerto Rico. I kept thinking about the coqui. Day 2, Friday, June 13th. Calm seas and shining sun. Eager the next morning, I jumped up bright and early and set out on a mission. Shortly thereafter, I'd succeeded at setting up the hammock. The two castle and the girl Jamaica. Of course I packed my hammock, truly a happy face. Contentedly, I swayed back and forth for a bit before vacating the familiar in favor of exploring along the cliffside portion of the castle grounds. I climbed all the steps to the toppest top I could, and descended all the way back down to the lowest of the low that I could. To my surprise, I stumbled across a metal ladder anchored into the water. I took a beat to listen to the waves lapping up against the land. Decided, now's the time to try out the snorkel. Let the record show that I have never successfully snorkeled before, let alone ever even tried to do it in the ocean. Not gonna lie, I most certainly felt rather proud for having the thought to hook my legs around the ladder to anchor and float to, while figuring out how to look underwater while still breathing the air up above. Luckily, it didn't take long to figure it out, and man, oh man, there were so many fish. Not only fish, but anemone, urchin, coral. It didn't take long for my ears to hear a holler, and shortly after, a new friend swam over, and somehow convinced me to swim over yonder to a cave with him. On the way there, he dove down to the bottom and collected a starfish for me to touch. On the way back, he speared me a parrotfish, gutted it, and sent me on my way to ask for it to be cooked at tomorrow evening's dinner festivities. Crab. Crabs on my brain along the descent to the sea. Andy speared me a fish and gutted it for Miss Janice to cook. Having confirmed it'd be cooked, I showered and caught a taxi to the store. I picked out a bevy of beverages, including bagged tea for brewing to be ice, and red stripes of the sorrel-flavored variety. 2 potatoes to be cooked with the fish, and even survived the currency exchange headaches during the payment procurement process. Next stop was a quick visit to the only tourist gift shop I visited while there. I purchased a shot glass and admired the landscaping of the shopping plaza building. Unfortunately, there was plenty room for more other stores, but none open and selling merchandise. Further indication of ongoing hardship. These were palms in the plaza. While perusing the shop, I had a lovely conversation with the saleswoman inside. She answered a slew of my dumb questions, most specifically one about whether permission is needed prior to plucking a mango growing from a tree. I was glad to know the answer was basically, duh, yeah, you gotta ask. The convo continued, and she shared with me some details into her life. She mentioned having recently lost her mother. I apologized for her loss and somewhat absent-mindedly admitted I'm never quite sure how to confidently respond when that news is shared with me. She was kind and patient with my ignorance and said to keep doing exactly what I did, offer my condolences. I think I also offered to hug her if it helped. We returned to the castle shortly after. Clouds over sea. I wandered back down to the ladder to find that, as politely requested, Andy had procured a shell and left it for me to find. I admired all of the textured and bumpy edges of it, such pleasure to behold. I carried it back up to the front entry and admired the pretty yellow flowers growing outside my window along the way. I think I was told they're good for your skin, maybe? I don't know. I forgot to ask more about them again. Andy found me a seashell. Happiness. This plant produced pretty flowers. Oh man, I should have said petals. This plant produced pretty petals. Before dinner, I spent some time sitting and snapping cell shots by the sea. She is sensationally solitary. Read my fuzzy recap of Friday night's events in this post over here. Day 3, Saturday, June 14th. Sunday afternoon, I listened to music and worked on website drafts that never got posted. Eventually, I adventured outside to bask in the sun with a lizard as Queens lounged around the castle grounds with us. And boy, oh boy, did we all enjoy ourselves some sun. Ultra-wide panorama. Basked with a lizard, we enjoyed the sun. Morning quickly turned to afternoon, then to evening, and before I knew it, the Rainbow Revelry dinner was upon us. Deuces, comfy and cozy, I'm a pickle, really more like a lime. Here's a pickled lime groove, happiness. Find it however you must. Rice and peas, oxtails, fish, potato, and a happy Kelly. After dinner, I looked out into the night sky and admired a dipper sinking into the sea. The way the dipper dips into the sea. Is it the big one? I forgot to look. Day 4, Sunday, June 15th. Wonky eyes shortly past sunrise. On the day of Lady's birthday, we awoke and went for a walk. With a kicked-up pace to keep up with the purposeful walkers, I did my best to admire as much of the everything as was reasonably possible. I admit that I'm much more practiced at intentional wandering over exercise pacekeeping, but regardless, I was glad for the adventure outside of the castle's confines. I do love a good wander so much. Cell shots were snapped along the way. I think this is flamboyant. If so, it has to be at least 5 years old, I think. I cropped out my aunt because I didn't get consent to push her on my site, but we thought these hanging tree limb vine things were neat. I wish my camera phone would have adequately captured the beauty of this tree. Well, concrete. I barely stopped to linger too long at any one point. Did my best to smile and point forwards at the purposefully paced planes before me while hurrying along behind them. The shorts rioted the whole way. A burn rash erupted on my inner thigh as a result of all the thundering steps, I presume. I was glad to get back in the van and read the sign about the lighthouse and the shot that I'd snapped of it. Negril, the capital of casual. Did you know that Negril has a unique lighthouse? The Negril Point Lighthouse, built in 1894 to guide sea vessels into the harbor, is currently the highest structure in the parish of Westmoreland and stands at the most western section of Jamaica. It stands on an 18-foot deep water tank, which makes it unique. Yeah. I love me a good sign. I saw many while we were driving, excited for having got a picture to read. Upon return, I wandered down to the water, admired a very squishy something along the way, and found Andy, who was now employed by Lady to spear barracuda for tomorrow's dinner. I fetched the incorrect cutting board for him to gut and fillet the catch. He recalled and sang the Heads High song by Mr. Vegas. I'd been itching for the song name, but could only think of the hums of it when in the bathroom. Weird, I know, but eventually I dug out and remembered enough of it to hum the melody back at him. I have no idea what this was, but everything in me wanted to poke it. Alas, I only took the picture. Andy filleted the barracuda he speared per lady's request. Those teeth were sharp. After carting fillets up into the kitchen, the queens and I readied ourselves to depart out for the big ultimate celebration event of the entire trip. Catamaran Day at sea. On the way, I sat in the front passenger seat and felt a policeman stare into my soul to confirm legitimate guilt for not having had my seatbelt buckled. I apologized profusely, buckled it immediately, and was grateful our driver was not ticketed or worse as a result of my negligence. We boarded the boat from the beach at Margaritaville. I forgot my swimsuit had a pocket. I forgot my vape was in my swimsuit. The waves mixed with the electronics as I climbed on the boat, and I did my best not to acknowledge that nightmare for the duration of our day out. I thought this shot was cool. I thought this house looked neat. The view of Katu from the sea. I thoroughly enjoyed this boat hammock. Ready to snorkel? The shade beneath the boat will forever be... The shade of blue beneath the boat will forever be seared into my memories. I could change that to the shade of blue beneath the boat will forever be seared. No. The shade of blue beneath the boat will forever be burned into my brain. That. Panoramiac from the Catamaraniac. We returned home safely in time to grab bevies and catch the sunset. Exhaustion finally caught up with me, and I ended up missing dinner in favor of snagging a nap. Castle Sunset Day 2, now with more panorama. Oh, that's in the wrong order, I guess. Whatever. Unfortunately, I was unable to revive the vape. Salt water is one hell of a crime against technology. The brain maggots erupted in protest, and there wasn't anything I could do to appease them. I made myself scarce for most of the rest of the trip. Day 5, Monday, June 16th. On Monday, the queens headed out on a love bus adventure. I stayed behind and pined for nicotine in various places around the castle. Actual withdrawal symptoms started to set in by the end of the day. Never have I ever been more torn about wanting to leave versus stay in a place. My memory of this day is pretty fuzzy, so enjoy the shots I snapped throughout the day. Friendly PSA. Nicotine is a terrible addiction, if possible, to be avoided at all costs. Thank you. This moss-covered rock was very soft. I looked at this rock long enough, and it started to look like a turtle after a while. Do you see it? Castle grounds greenery. Yellow flower. I have to ask again what kind it was again. I forgot. The view from my room. Pink flowers. I never even checked what kind these were. Eternal couple. Day 6, Tuesday, June 17th. We packed up in preparation to head back home on Tuesday. I was sad to go and not necessarily super looking forward to getting back home. But unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for me to miss my plane. Before checkout, I arranged my collected trinkets for someone to come along to find, like, the hell is this? I found 2 rocks and a bird leaf. I kept them in my room while I was there. I'm proud of me for not having taken them, as they were not mine to take in the first place. Obviously, it's been over a month since all this took place, and I know for a fact I've left many a thing out, some by accident, some on purpose. But overall, I'm glad enough for having spent this amount of time reflecting on these memories enough to work them into these words. Reflecting a little more deeply, I find myself surprised at how sticky the whole experience has been to my mind, comparing the opportunity to live there for 5 whole days to the general life state discontent that has developed over the course of the past year and a half or so. I don't know, it's probably a naive and sheltered trail of thought, somewhat jaded even to think on all the privileges I'd willingly exchange in return for an opportunity to just make a life there instead of whatever it is I've been fumbling around doing here. At the end of the day, it all reeks of fantastical, pipe dreamy, never me in a million years type energy. But I mean, I didn't birth offspring into the world on purpose for a reason. So, what real obstacles do I really have holding me back except my dog and myself? If I actually practice diligence and work with intent, there could be a future where that could be a possibility. I can't run away from the realization that I felt as though I could human so much more easily while there. It felt natural to just be me. Whether that's my naivety showing, since I was a tourist and therefore naturally there's built in potential to be taken advantage of with relative ease, or that it's my privilege emerging for even having the audacity to think the encounters I experienced were nefarious in nature by design in the first place. I mean, I'm not sure, but ultimately both reasons feel drenched in insecurity, and that doesn't help anything or anyone anywhere at all. Oftentimes, my ability to hyperfixate is immense, and my ability to obsess can be more than detrimental. It's one of the more foundational reasons I even bother doing the sharing of things in this way on the site. I can do something with all this thought goop, and if something good happens to come of it in the future, then neat. But at the very least, it's released from the confines of my mind. I think it's silly to continue trying to fit the square peg that is me into the round hole that is the typical American lifestyle that has heretofore been laid out for me. I've never been interested in climbing ladders, competing for prestige, or elevating myself at the expense of others. Or elevating myself at the expense of everyone else. I have only ever and always wanted to be a helpful. Maybe it's about time I get around to actually figuring out how to help myself in a meaningful, impactful way that will actually benefit my happiness in the long run. Lots of thoughts to think on for sure, but alas, until next time. Thanks for listening.